Hi everyone, I'm Tricia McCannon and welcome to an exciting new course on one of my favorite subjects, the Tree of Life, the Anunnaki gods, and the way of the return to Source. This is really one of the most amazing subjects, and as you're going to see, we're going to be taking a journey in 7 parts. Each one of these is integral and they build on one another. So let's just kind of take a look at what the course is going to be. In part 1, which you're just about to hear, we're going to be looking at the Tree of Life, just touching in on it in all these cultures all over the world. It is probably the one universal symbol that every religion and every culture of the world actually honors. And why? We'll find out. In part 2, we're going to get into its association, its long connection with the goddess, the Divine Mother, with great world saviors, and how the Tree of Life is integral to them. In part 3, we're going to begin to decipher and decode the hermetic symbol of the serpent or the snake, the spiral that's constantly shown enigmatically wrapped around the tree. Many people wonder, what the heck is a serpent doing on the cross? Why is it on this tree? You know, and of course what we have to relate to in the Abrahamic religions is the serpent as a negative symbol, but for the ancient world it was actually a symbol of great wisdom, and it is a key to the whole process and techniques of enlightenment within the human body and within human consciousness. So we'll be decoding those secrets in part 3. In part 4, we're going to take a look at how it applies to us at a personal level. What is the personal Tree of Life? How is it involved with our nervous system, with the Kundalini energy, and with the activation of our DNA that holds the repository of many incredible gifts and talents that many of us are just beginning to have come online. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, telepathy, healing ability, levitation, teleportation, telekinetic ability, all of these are trapped within our DNA. And we're at a place where, you know, they say what we literally have all, what, 70–80% of it is junk DNA. It's not junk DNA at all. In fact, it holds our potential as whole human beings. How can we activate it? It all has to do with the Tree of Life. So we'll find that out in part number 4. In part 5, we're going to take a look at the history of how the tree first came to the planet Earth, who brought it here, who had knowledge of it, and how was that knowledge conveyed to the human species, and how it has remained in legend for tens of thousands of years. In part 6, we're going to take a look at the connection that many of these traditions talk about, of this rainbow bridge. In Norse mythology, the Bifrost. If any of you watch the Thor movies, the Bifrost is literally the bridge that connects all the dimensions and all the worlds together. The Kabbalah, which is a mystical symbol of wisdom in the Jewish tradition, and the ladder to heaven, what it means and how to climb it. And this is actually the Kabbalah made simple, but simple at the most profound level. So we're not going to go into all the, you know, the Jewish names and get very confusing, but we're going to explain to you how it works and how to master it. In part 7, we get into the alchemy of the elements and the path of mastery that literally brings us to a place of enlightenment and perfection. So it's a real exciting course, you can see, because the Tree of Life exists at a personal level, at a planetary level, and at a cosmic level. So without further ado, let us begin our journey. So the Tree of Life is perhaps the most universal symbol that we have found in any culture or religion around the world. Why? What is its significance? What does it really mean? I mean, certainly most of us love trees. We know that trees at a physical level produce oxygen. Without them, there'd be no life at all on this planet. And trees and humans and mammals were very symbiotic, because we breathe oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. They breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe that oxygen. So without them, the planetary sphere would not even be able to exist, the atmosphere. But beyond the power of the tree, the the being of great magnitude and majesty that grows from this little seed, it 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 really is actually one of the most powerful symbols in the world for a good reason. And in the process of the unfolding of this course, you're going to understand why this symbol will not go away, and it really shouldn't, because it gives us the keys to mastery and the technology of mastery if we really understand its power and its importance. It does appear in every culture and really every religion of the world. We see references to the tree of life. So why is it so important? Let's take a look at some of the places we find it in various cultures. This is perhaps the first culture where the tree of life appears. And this is because this culture was deeply woven into the history of the Anunnaki gods, who first set up the culture in Sumeria thousands of years ago. And we see in this depiction the flower of life down below, and the flower of life is extremely important. We're going to be seeing more about that in further modules. We see that the tree comes up and it seems to have a fan-like, almost like a palm tree, and there are always 7 of these leaves. If you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is important because it represents the 7 planes, the 7 chakras, and it's actually like a hologram. It's a hologram that's talking about the template of reality and how the universe is created. There is a vine-like element. You can see these are actually vines. So there's not only the leaf or the palm leaf, but there's the flower, and then as we're going to discover, there's also a fruit, and that fruit is critically important because it holds the keys to eternal life. This is the tree of life in the Celtic, and I love the Celtic tradition. I actually speak at great length about the Celtic tradition in my class on the goddess and Mary Magdalene, and also in some of my books because of the importance of it. The way it's been depicted here, what does it create? It creates these roots. The roots almost look like the branches up above, don't they? As above, so below. So that hermetic principle is embodied within the symbology. Also, it creates an infinity symbol, doesn't it? It literally is the flow of the infinity symbol, and it's also the energy of the battery of the universe. When we think about planets, for example, how the energy rises from the South Pole to the North Pole, and then literally it overspills like a waterfall and comes back around. It's the biosphere around every living planet and really every living thing. And so the Celts really understood the subtle energy, the movement of subtle energy, and they embodied it perfectly in this hermetic glyph that says so much if we can understand the physics of the universe. This is the Scandinavian. Let's take a look at this one. Down here in the bottom, we have the mortal world, the ephemeral world, the world that we all live in, where there's life and death and babies and skeletons and skulls. We're all mortal as long as we're living in the 3rd dimension. And we haven't achieved full mastery. So down here, we kind of have that specter of life and death. Up here, we have the sages of wisdom, and they are pouring down wisdom, the waters of wisdom, from the tree of life. And it was always said that at the base of the tree were the waters of wisdom, the cosmic waters of Nun, or the cosmic ocean. Now, up here in the tree, we see a savior-like figure, like a Jesus-like figure, and this was actually before Jesus was even born. So this world savior is an idea that is perennial, and every few thousand years one of these great masters comes to this planet. Now notice he's flocked by 2 doves, and this would represent the divine feminine, the divine mother, and the divine daughter, or his wife, like Mary Magdalene, and his mother, like Mary the mother. That's what we can identify with in our age, because these were the great avatars that came in the beginning of the age of Pisces 2,000 years ago. But these are perennial principles. These beings are eternal, and they periodically descend to earth. And so here it's beautifully depicted. And what's at the very top of the tree? Well, the eagle, the great eagle. The great eagle represents the divine father, or the divine creator of all. In South America, it was said to be the condor. In North America, it was the great thunderbird, or the great eagle. The Persians think of it as a great eagle as well. The Greeks thought of it the same way. This is why the eagle became the symbol, the hermetic symbol of the Lord Most High, Zeus in this case. So all of this is the tree of life, with God looking down, the Son of God, the daughter, and the mother principle also descending. And these are runes. And these runes represent the 12 signs of the zodiac. So this being is able to insert himself, or these beings are able to insert themselves between the change of the ages. They can truly come anytime they wish, but they generally come every 2,000, 2,100 so years at the beginning of an age, just as we see Jesus came at the beginning of our age. And when we look back in time, we see other great avatars that have also come in. And these teachers here, spiritual teachers, are receiving this knowledge and pouring the knowledge down into the ephemeral world. So this is the Scandinavian tree of life, extremely fascinating when we understand hermetics, which is the symbol language in which this ancient knowledge was encoded. Now here's the Norse. I love the Norse tree of life. It's called Yggdrasil. That's its name. So here's our tree. And Earth is here. We're called Midgard. We're right in the middle. They're said that there are worlds below the tree, there are worlds that are at the top of the tree, and there are worlds that are commensurate with our dimension, the third dimension. So in other words, there are worlds or planets or dimensions that are lower in frequency than us. For example, there's an ice world, Jotunheim. There's a fiery world. These are kind of lower. Then there are ones that are on the same level as us. They're still grappling with duality. For example, the realm of the dark elves. That they make lots of technology, but they don't always use it very well. Just like human beings, kind of similar. We make lots of technology, but we use it for good and we use it for not so good. And then at the higher levels, we have like the realm of the light elves, and at the top we have Asgard, which is the realm of, the gods with a little g. So this is the Norse, and you can see with the Norse, and we'll be talking about this in some of our other class modules, the rainbow bridge here. And it's the rainbow bridge that connects all the worlds together. And it is that bridge that we travel in order to be able to go up or down in dimensions. Here's the Egyptian. Now, many of you didn't probably know that Egypt knew all about the tree of life. This was actually one of its most famous symbols. It's called the Djet, or the Tet, and it represents many, many things. It represents the four basic divisions. There's said to be 7 dimensions and 7 levels to every dimension. But if you look at it in terms of the way the energy comes down, there's the world of emanation. That's, where everything emanates from God, from the One. The world of creation, and that would be, let us say, the sacred geometry of what we think of as the 6th and 7th dimension. The world of formation, that would be the 4th and 5th dimension, where you see houses and trees and temples and cities and grass, and even though they might be vibrating at a higher frequency, they're identifiable forms. And then we come into the 3rd dimension, and this is called the world of action. This is where what we do makes a difference. And of course, we're constantly challenged by the light and the dark, and we have to climb the ladder, so to speak, in order to begin to ascend to these higher dimensions. Now, over here, this is a really extraordinary depiction of the tree of life. We see the same kind of rod that we saw before. We see something that kind of looks vine-like here, and they seem to be like milking the tree, literally like you'd milk a cow. And this little guy is holding a vessel just like this one. Almost looks like the kind of vessel you'd pour milk or oil or some sacred juice out of. And he's literally milking the tree. And we're going to discover that this is connected actually with the fruit of life and the juice of immortality. This is an incredibly a rich and rare depiction. We can sort of see from the curly Q on their forehead that these are a priest who have awakened their third eye. We see these serpents up here. These serpents all represent the nodices, or the, let us say, states of awakened consciousness. The serpents here, you can see even in the front of their togas or their aprons, you kind of see, just like the Freemasons, it comes down, there's a little serpent on either side. And over the course of this class, we're going to discover what the meaning of these serpents really are and how these were nothing to be afraid of. They were actually something that has to do with the spiritual technology of the tree itself. Here we can see, again, the Kabbalah, which is a Jewish version of the Tree of Life, flanked by these two pillars. And this flanking of the two pillars, as we're going to discover in this course, is critical to understanding the path of ascension, the path of enlightenment. So here we have literally the middle path. And you can see, if you look carefully, that there are Anunnaki gods that are actually placed within these circles. These circles are called Sephiroth. And so here, in the middle path, we literally have alignment with the Creator, being willing to travel into the higher worlds. This is Anubis. And the very bottom, we have Kepra, Anubis. And then going into the heart, which brings us to Osiris and the place of Gnosis. And we're going to be talking a lot more about this. But on this side, we have Thoth, and here we have Isis. So this is the mental realm. This is the sensual realm, or the realm of feelings and love. So trying to balance these. And we'll be going into more depth about the spiritual technology of the Kabbalah as our course unfolds. But here we have the symbol for eternal life, which is the Ankh. And many of you may not realize that the Ankh is actually composed of the tree of life. It's this tree, and it's a version of the tree that's like a cross, but without a top on it. It's called the Tau cross. And the Tau cross I talk about in great depth in some of my other classes that I've done for Sacred University. But this is actually, the physical road that we travel, and the journey from the higher road realms or dimensions that we come down. And of course, this is the Vesica Piscis, which is, let us say, the eye of God, and it's the shape that is formed when we actually merge the masculine and the feminine together. It's like a doorway, if you will. Remember in the New Testament, when Jesus talks about the fact that it's harder for a rich man to get through the eye of a needle than it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man, because he's saying that rich men are attached to their possessions. So why did he choose the eye of a needle? Well, it's the same shape, isn't it? So this is a shorthand hermetic version of the tree of life and the symbol for eternal life that can be achieved once we learn how to travel that path. In the Buddhist tradition, if you remember, there's an incredible story of the young prince, Siddhartha, who came to meditate beneath a Bodhi tree. And it was beneath this great tree that he became enlightened. He achieved his Buddhahood. And we'll be talking about that again as our story progresses. In the Mayan tradition, this is the tree of life and the Mayan. And here we have the serpent. and we're going to be spending a whole module on decoding the spiral and the cosmic serpent and how important it is to the path of enlightenment. And here we have what appears to be the rainbow bridge, literally going from horizon to horizon. Souls enter into the realm, they come down into the physical world, and then souls leave the realm. There's cosmic water below it, a subterranean area where there's roots, and then they have, you can see the angels above it. The house of God is up here. The sun, which is a perennial symbol of enlightenment, and the boat of a million years, or the boat of heaven, traveling through. This is another depiction from the Mayan. This comes from the British Museum, and we recognize now the shape of the Tau cross, don't we? All we have to do is put a loop at the top, and we've got the Ankh. This is a world away. One is Egypt, way over in, the Mediterranean and Africa. This is over in South America and Central America. What the heck is the same symbol doing an entire ocean away? It's because this is a universal symbol. Notice at the top of the tree, once again, we have a bird. Now, in the Celtic tradition, we saw it was an eagle. In the Mayan tradition, they had condors, and they also had parrots. Those were really important birds. So, is this an eagle? Is it a condor? Is it a parrot? All we know is it's significant that once again we see the same hermetic symbols of this great father energy. And we see one character who looks like he's dark over here, and this character looks like he's light, doesn't he? What does that mean? We're going to be decoding this as we go along. And then here we see 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3. So there's a trinity on either side. But what happens when we have a trinity plus a trinity? We have 6, right? So we're going to be decoding the 3 and the 6 as we go along. All of these are of great significance once we begin to understand the technology of enlightenment. So just put them in the back of your brain and remember that these are questions we're going to be addressing and answering in this course. Here's the Olmec tree of life. Here's a tree. We got the Tau cross. We recognize this by now. And we have this kind of double serpent energy climbing up the tree. Double serpent energy. What in the heck is like a double serpent? Well, we're going to be discovering more about that when we get into the passages and the class on DNA and spiritual technology of enlightenment. The Jewish teachings. Here we have the same kind of thing. It looks like our serpent going up our tree. Now, what the heck is the serpent doing here? Here's a kind of fluffy version of the tree, and we have, 2 people, one on either side, representing. Here we have dark people again on this side, and we have light people on this side. It's all very subtle. But if you notice, we actually have other things going on. We've got a total of 5 spheres, don't we? 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one in the middle. So we now know the number 3 is important, the number 6 is important, and the number 5 is important. And we'll be learning about the number 5, which is extremely important to the alchemy of enlightenment, in our very last class in this series. This is, of course, the deeper esoteric level of the Jewish teachings, which teaches the Kabbalah. And we have a whole class, whole module on this. But I'll just briefly talk about the fact that we are down here. This is Malkuth. It's called the kingdom. And this is actually the ancient symbol for the planet Earth. We are down here on Earth. We're on the wheel, aren't we? The wheel of becoming. And in order to even get on the tree, we have to be willing to go into our feelings and our emotions. That is the lunar dimension of feelings, emotions, and the astral plane. But then, in order to climb the tree, we have to find a way to balance each of these spheres with one another. And that is not so easy. it seems easy, but when we actually have to live our lives, it's a little more difficult. This is like the world of materialism and the world of asceticism, the world of emotion and the world of the mind, just to give you an example. And sometimes our minds and our emotions, they agree with each other. Other times they pull us in completely different directions. Sometimes we think, well, okay, I'll just sit and meditate. Another part of us says, no, I need to go shopping. So, when we actually start applying these principles, we can begin to discover that there are many, many dimensional levels to what the Kabbalah means, and we'll be getting into that a bit later. Here we have it in the Christian telling. And of course, the Christian comes out of the Old Testament. The Christian Bible contains the Jewish version of the Old Testament, written from about 950 BC at the time of King Solomon, and probably about 60% of it was written at 100, 200, 300, 400, no earlier than 400, 500 BC. So the Old Testament was not codified in its present form with all the books of the Bible until about 100 BC, which most of us don't know about. But then we have the teachings of Jesus, the New Testament, and that kind of got grafted on to the Old Testament, even though they're written by completely different groups, and they don't necessarily really agree with one another. But the version of reality we've inherited in all the Abrahamic religions, and particularly Christianity, comes from the Jewish version of the Garden of Eden, and here's Eve and Adam, and here's the serpent, and of course all the beautiful animals. And we'll be talking about that. But most of us don't realize that every year when we come up to December 25th, the celebration of Christmas, and we go out and buy that wonderful Christmas tree, and we have such a great time decorating it and lighting it up, and it just kind of makes our house so magical, that what that tree represents is the tree of life. The tree of life is the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is the tree of life. And so this is a tradition that actually predates Christianity. Why? Because for thousands of years, the tree of life was celebrated. And these balls on it, what do the balls represent? They represent the suns and the planets. So the lights are the suns and the balls are the planets, all in the universe of creation. And when you think about it, it really is a very profound thing. And the star at the top, that bright and shining star, well, we can say it's, God, it's the creator. We can say it's the path that we travel that allows us to awaken to our own divine light, divine divinity at the top of the tree. Now, this is the Freemason version. Check this one out. I love the Freemason version. First off, we see God's hand, or the Creator's hand, reaching down and holding the roots of the tree. In other words, the tree didn't originate down here. The tree originates in the higher dimensions. The roots of the tree are actually in heaven. And as the tree descends, we have those same four realms I was talking about. The world of emanation, which you can see is depicted by like the Big Bang, by a radiant sun. The Big Bang, the divine force created everything, emanated everything out. Then we have the realm of creation. This would sort of be the sacred geometry of the universe that is behind everything, the sacred geometry that forms the templates. We've discovered it in fractal geometry today. Because of microscopes and our ability to go very deep, we've discovered a whole world of sacred geometric shapes that underlie the big world that we can see. Now, the world that we can see is the world of formation, and that would start with the fifth dimension, which is a very radiant realm where the energy of energy itself, light and sound and waveform, begins to coalesce into the structures of matter. In the fifth dimension, the fourth dimension, they're certainly vibrating a lot more quickly than they vibrate in the third dimension, but they still have those same kinds of reference points, although the laws of physics change in those dimensions. So, for example, in this world, we see a beautiful temple, looks great. We go inside, it feels great in there. And if they're playing music, wonderful. But if nothing's happening, all we can do is appreciate the architecture and the beauty that's been set up. In the fourth and fifth dimension, literally the temples emanate with knowledge. Literally, they vibrate out what they are. So they're still form, but the laws of physics operate slightly differently. And then we have our world, which is kind of a world of confusion, where we are trying to climb up the tree. In the fifth dimension, the energy is moving down in order to create the fourth dimension and to create the third dimension. By the time we get to our world, which is kind of a world, I hate to say it, of a bit of chaos. It's a beautiful world, a paradise world, but we don't always treat it that way, do we? We're very conflictual down here. We seem to be completely confused about who we are, where we're going half the time. So you can see a lot of conflict and lightning bolts in this realm. But our mission in this realm is to make the most of the time that we have, be as effective as we can. We're in the world of action, but remember to align our energy and our consciousness to move up and to travel what is called the lightning path. We're going to be getting into the lightning path as we go along, because it's really a template for the path that we have to travel. So let's just ask a very simple question. Where the heck did the tree of life come from? Who brought it here? And what did they know about it that got conveyed to us as human beings? And what if we've forgotten that they once taught us that was known to initiates around the world that, perhaps is not known by the general populace today? What do we know about the tree as a cosmic symbol? Well, first we know that it's said that there are these cosmic waters that flow from its base, and that it's connected somehow with the rebirth and the regeneration of the world, of the universe, and that it's connected with some pretty high-level masters. The tree acts as a bridge between the higher realms of light and the lower realms of darkness. It's a connector that connects all the realms. And if we learn about the tree and we learn how to activate the tree within ourselves and to become one with it, we can actually travel through the dimensions on this tree. And it acts really as the bridge itself, the bridge between the worlds. And we're going to take a look in some of the later modules about why it's called the Rainbow Bridge and how this is connected with spiritual technology. We also see the same rainbow bridge in Norse mythology. So here we have Midgard. This would be Middle Earth, as Tolkien called it in his beautiful Lord of the Rings series. Here's the realm of the light elves. They're on our level. World of intense fires here. Down below we have, this is the ice giants, Jotunheim. This is the Nephilim. Heim in the German or the Norse means world. So all of them end in a Heim. Helheim. This is I think this is supposed to be a fiery world if I remember right. Like hell, we hear about hell. Helheim, realm of the dead. Svartalheim, that's the realm of the dark elves that create lots of technology. If you saw the Thor movies, there was a whole one that had to do with the icy giants and the ice giants, and one that had to do with the dark elves. So it kind of gives you the Hollywood version of it, but I thought it was pretty good. Vanaheim, the realm of the gods, and supposedly this is a good realm. And up at the top we have Asgard, which is a more elevated realm. So perhaps this is a realm that exists. Maybe all this is in the third dimension, but maybe these are different dimensions. So maybe Asgard's in the fourth dimension or even the fifth dimension, but it's a realm of peace. Here we have again the Norse. These are more modern depictions, but you can see the rainbow, the Bifrost that's connecting it. Here's Midgard, Jotunheim, Svartalheim, that's the dark elves' land, Niflheim, and we can see the serpent. Here's our little serpent, and he looks like he's about to take a drink from the waters at the bottom of the tree, doesn't he? Here's Helheim, the realm of the dead. That would be maybe what we think of as hell in our Abrahamic religions. And here's Asgard up here. And once again, we see a bird at the top, but this time there's a great dove, and look above the dove, there's that hawk or an eagle. So this is the Divine Father energy and the Divine Mother energy. The Holy Spirit and the Divine Mother that comes down into the worlds and oversees it, and the Divine Father. They're both right there. And here's our sun, soul traveling across. Here's our moon, the lunar energies. So we have two polarities. So this is even though this is a more modern painting, they've actually managed to weave a lot of elements into it that are classical elements. Here we even see what looks like someone bathing in a well. Okay, they're like baptism. They're becoming purified in the waters that come from the tree of life. And here's Yurd's well. This would be where the three Norns dwell. The three Norns are the past, the present, and the future. They're the spinners of the circle of time. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot of things going on in this image. Very interesting. And over here, this is not nearly as detailed, but again, we have the light on the top of the mountain and the Bifrost or the Rainbow Bridge and the waters below connecting it all. So the tree of life is thought of as the framework upon which all the planets are hung, upon which the third dimensional world is hung, even though the tree extends way beyond the third dimension, all the way up, as we saw, into beyond the worlds of emanation. And again, this is the same thing. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 realms, so 3 times 3. Once you enter the world of hermetics, you'll find that you'll start counting everything, because those who are initiates understand the importance of encoding this information in symbolism. Here again is Norse mythology. Here the Aesir, or the Asgardians, who are literally traveling on the Rainbow Bridge between the dimensions. Now, this Rainbow Bridge is, I think, a very fascinating idea. The way that it was depicted in the first Thor movie was that it literally allows us to kind of go through a stargate, like a wormhole, to move from one dimension to another, or one realm to another. So, we're still trying to figure out exactly what all the implications of the Rainbow Bridge are, but certainly we're going to be talking about some of the meanings that we do understand that is connected with spiritual technology. So it connects our planet, the Earth, to the source of all the mysteries. And the tree of life itself offers a middle path, a path right up the center. So there's a path to the left, a path to the right, but there is a middle path, and we're going to be taking a deeper and deeper look at what this path might be and how this was something that Buddha taught, the middle path. Jesus taught, he called it the way of the chalice. Mary Magdalene taught it, Thoth taught it, the ancient way, but it's a shortcut to these higher dimensions. So what we're talking about here is something called the One World Tree. I love that. And again, we see these beautiful waters of Nun coming from it. So when we think about this tree, if you think that these waters of purity are flowing down from these higher realms to create all the beauty of the worlds below it, it's really a powerful symbol. So by connecting in with the purity of the waters, literally you can begin to connect with the tree. Water, as we know, is profoundly cleansing. Without the ocean, there'd be no life on this planet at all. This is one of the reasons that goddesses like the Lady of the Lake were so powerful, because by entering the energy of the Lady of the Lake, the pool of water, meditating on a pool of still water, you literally can move into alignment with the cosmic ocean of love and mercy. So the tree acts like a doorway. Yep, it's a portal between dimensions and between worlds. This is again Celtic, totally beautiful. And there's symbology in all these knots. We can see a stylized form of the Vesica Piscis, which looks really more like a seed. You'd have to lengthen this, extend it, elongate it a bit. But again, there is imagery within this. We see the Trinity, literally in the stars. So this doorway of enlightenment was what Buddha found when he sat beneath the ancient tree. If you remember Buddha's story, he was a prince who was given at his birth. His father, the king, found out that there was a prophecy that he would either be a great king in the secular world or he would become a great sage, one of the two. And the father wanted him to be a great king. He wanted a successor. So there was nothing spared, in his education, in his food, in his delight with women. He wound up marrying. He had a child. He had it all. He had the adoration of the people. He had palaces. He really had it all. But one day when he was on a parade on an elephant, he looked down and saw old people. And he had never seen old people. They had been kept from him. The existence of death had been kept from him. And he followed the old people to a place where people were dying, and they were literally commending a body to the fire, and he saw death for the first time, and he proclaimed that he would find an end to human suffering. And he went through many stages as an ascetic, as a meditator, as a yogi, and eventually he came to sit beneath the Bodhi tree, where he became the great Buddha that we know of today. And this doorway beneath the tree, there's no accident that he was enlightened there. He was able to become one with the tree of life. He was able to travel this path. Now, many times you'll see there's not only the straight and narrow path here, or the Trinitarian path, the left and the right sides. You can see this looks like it's summer. This looks like it's more like maybe fall and winter. So we have spring and summer, or maybe this is fall and summer, and this is winter and spring. So if you notice, though, beneath the tree is a pathway. It's a labyrinth. And the labyrinth, the proper labyrinth, always has 7 circuits. Where have we heard that number before? So the tree becomes a pathway to the stars, a pathway like the rainbow body. This is Nut, the goddess of the stars, to heaven, where we can pull back the veils and peer beyond the third dimensional world that we're in to see these higher worlds, these higher dimensions. I've always loved this image. Here we have the tree itself. We have the sun and the moon, so lunar and solar, and then we have the stars. And you're going to discover that these are hermetic symbols of great importance. Here we have again the worlds of emanation from the cosmic waters, the birth of the idea of the first human, the atom Cadman coming out of the cosmic egg, the worlds of creation that would be down here in the sacred geometries, and then the worlds of formation, and finally the worlds of the planets and the third dimensional worlds of action. Connecting all dimensions, and with this serpent, our friendly little garter serpent, connecting all the worlds. as the framework that holds up the universe. And here again we see, here we are on Midgard, and there are worlds below us and worlds above us. Many believe that the tree of life is the foundation of the world. So where we saw the tree of life's roots in heaven before, here we see the roots below holding up the whole world. So this would be Midgard, and this would be the waters surrounding Midgard. Perhaps this was done at a time when people thought that the world was flat. Here is the ark of all the animals and the tree over it. And we see these lightning bolts reminding us of the lightning path that we're going to be decoding, and of course our friendly little snake. The tree is certainly said to contain all polarities within it. So let's take a look at this beautiful, beautiful painting. We have light and dark, lunar and solar. We have the old man's profile here. And here is the Father Time representing death. And over here we have the young girl's profile. Can you see that? There's her eye and her nose and her mouth. That's her hair here. So male and female, young and old, lunar and solar. Here we have the child being born into the world on the boat of 1,000,000 years. They're being ushered into their new life, escorted into the physical world where they can have a life well lived, and eventually, of course, they exit when they die. So everything is contained, all polarities within the tree. Light and dark, lunar and solar, male and female, all seasons, all times. Everything is contained within it, above and below. Thus, of course, this powerful symbol is linked to the perennial wisdom of world saviors. And this is something we're going to be spending some time talking about. Again, I want to just kind of look at what we're going to be covering in this course. Part 1 was its symbology that we're going to be decoding as we go along. We're going to start next with the goddess, the world saviors, and the tree of life. Part 3 is the spiral and the great cosmic serpent. Part 4 is learning about your own personal tree of life and the spiritual technology behind it and how to activate your DNA. Part 5 is the Anunnaki gods and how the tree of life is connected to the quest for the Holy Grail. Part 6 is understanding what that rainbow bridge is and the real importance of the Kabbalah as a ladder to heaven. And finally, we end with Part 7, the alchemy of all 5 elements and the path of mastery. So we hope you'll join us next time for Part 2, which is about the goddess, the great world saviors, and the tree of life, and how intricately their stories are woven with one another. Thanks so much for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you in the class, and we hope you enjoy it. Blessings be.